Well, the KPMG Summit, and this is all about gambling as such. And it's interesting that GambleAware are here, because this is the charity side of things to stop people going out of control. Interesting they've invited you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great to be here actually. It's a good opportunity to speak to lots of operators in one place. Really, they are in the prime position to look after people who are drifting towards getting into trouble with their gambling, and they're the people who can stop them getting into trouble with their gambling. So it's the right place to be.
How big a problem is it?
Well, we've just seen some figures coming out across Great Britain suggesting there are 430,000 problem gamblers. Now, we'd expect probably about 10% of those to be looking for help at any point in time. So that still means that we ought to be treating about 40,000 people, and actually we're treating only around 8,000 a year. So we've got a big gap to close and a big task ahead of us.
And there's been a high-profile case about a company being fined for not stopping people who wanted to stop even. I mean, that's quite worrying.
It's very worrying, because that was some of the most basic safeguards that should be in place already. The ability to self-exclude, and equally the ability for the company to spot people who are spending far more money than they ought to be able to.
I'm guessing that you're here because they're trying to tell you they're being responsible these days. This is what the sector is trying to clean up its act. Is that too strong a word?
I think the sector's under enormous pressure to do so, and I suspect there's a lot of shareholders who are talking to their boards and their chief execs at the moment, and they're looking at the recent fine, and they're telling them they need to raise their game.
Are you confident that there is more safeguards in place? Are you confident that they're doing what they need to do?
I think we're racing to catch up. So we do a lot of research working in partnership with the industry. We've just published some research which shows that it's possible for online operators to spot problem gamblers based on the data they have around how people are playing. So it might be to do with how they respond to a big win or a big loss. Do they take the money out? Do they continue to play it? Or what time of day are they playing? They may have started by only betting on a Saturday, and suddenly they're betting at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday night.
And we see these adverts on TV. It's get £10 free or £100 free. You know, that sort of drawing you in feel to it. And people who are addicts, it could be alcohol, it could be anything, have an addiction, and it's something that they can't do much about, I guess. Is that?
We certainly know that research shows that for an addict it's very difficult to resist some of these adverts. So we don't think the adverts necessarily cause problem gambling, but if you're going through a process of recovery, and maybe you've had some treatment and you're trying to resist the temptation, then anything which offers an instant bonus or a time limit about when you've got to bet can be very, very difficult for them to deal with.
And of course these companies are making a fantastic amount of money, aren't they? Most of them. That's what they're in it for. I mean, it's huge money we're talking about, and it's like smokers at the end of the day. They need customers, don't they?
Well, of course they need customers, and we shouldn't forget that gambling employs a lot of people. By virtue of the way you invest in sport and so on, that often trickles down to sort of grassroots sports as well. So all we're saying is that for the 0.5% of the population that we know really struggle with their gambling, these companies do need to give us the resources that we need to help prevent that and to help those who get into trouble.
And you get money from these companies, do you?
We do. So we ask them to give us 10p in every £100 of gross profit that they make. So it's not a huge amount, 0.1%. And it's a voluntary system, although they are required under their licence to make a contribution to the work that we do.
And that's enough to keep you going and to do what you need to do?
It's enough for us to do what we do today, but what we don't do is promote the services as well as we ought to. And of course, if we started to promote them more heavily, we would have to expect that more people would need the treatment that follows. So I do think we're going to have to raise our own game as we look forward to dealing with this growing number of problem gamblers.
Because those ads always have that throwaway line, gamble responsibly, and I think you get a plug on your website.
So if you do any advertising, you have to put the GambleAware website on the bottom of your advert. But I'm not very keen on the gamble responsibly phrase, because it sort of suggests that the opposite is irresponsible gambling. Now, if you're an addict, that's a mental health condition that's not being irresponsible. So I'm trying to move away from that as much as I possibly can.
Okay. So impressed with what you see? Things are moving in the right direction?
Yes, there's a big challenge to the online sector in particular, and being here in the Isle of Man, of course, a lot of the business-to-business operations are here, the infrastructure that supports all the brands out there. So they're in a really incredibly important position to influence how those brands respond. And I don't think I would want to be sitting in the boots of the bookies at the moment, waiting for the government to do something perhaps quite drastic in regulating their sector in a few years' time in another sector. So I think now is the time for the online sector to act.